comes first, your development or their development?
Sort of knock on people's doors and don't expect things to come your way. And I think I've been very good at that. When you have an impact on that child's footballing journey, to then go and push on when they get older, it makes a massive difference. I think compared to...
How the hell did that happen? Welcome everybody, this is Barry from HYA Football. You're in for a little bit of a treat. This is our very first podcast, so I'm super excited, and we've got a very special guest to introduce. And without further ado, I'll introduce him because I've known him for a while. He's been a personal and professional close relation of myself for the last 5, 6, 7 years, and I thought out of anyone to ask for the first podcast for HYA Football, it was going to be very difficult if I didn't ask him, and there could have been a lot of contenders for this one. So without further ado, we've got Theo Fearon here with me. Thank you for coming down, and spending a bit of time with us today. Just to give us a bit of a context of Theo. So Theo is a football coach, He's got a wealth of experience coaching at different levels and abilities. He's also a practitioner within education, and he's aspiring to juggle the two jobs or vocations in his career that he's pursuing. But ultimately today it's just to get to learn a little bit more about him and just to understand his journey so far. So Theo, welcome. How are you doing?
First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm delighted. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Good. So I do have a number of questions here, but truthfully, I don't really keep to the script too often, and I know you know that. So, but ultimately, to get a bit of understanding and context of Theo as the person sitting here right now, what is it about yourself? What is it about your kind of identity that people are needing to learn about yourself?
Good question. I think for me, it's definitely been ambitious in terms of pursuing what I want. And I think from early on, say early years of college, I sort of knew what I wanted to go into. So it was more of a sense is how can I get there, and then obviously what's next for the challenges that I can obviously pursue a good career, and obviously 5, 6 years to come. So so good timing to be honest, because obviously just completed my football coaching degree. So it's sort of now what shapes my future for me to go into. So I'm sort of looking forward to it in the next couple of years to obviously see what's out there.
Are you excited or
fearing? Definitely. I wouldn't say fearing it. I think I'm more excited to see what the future holds, because I've got a few ideas that I want to obviously try and go into. Obviously one of them is being teaching, so it's about taking myself out of the comfort zone to sort of see what I can achieve, and obviously how best I can push myself into that environment.
Why teaching? Why particular that industry to come out of your comfort zone and not something else?
I think teaching for me, obviously I started when I was very young, 17, into coaching. I think coaching and teaching are very similar. And for me it was, what can I sort of give back to obviously what I got when I was obviously in a learning environment, obviously in academics. So teaching for me is, how can I give the best possible experiences, obviously like young people like me, maybe that I maybe didn't get when I was younger, to sort of give back and sort of just show them, like going to school or learning, different subjects is not as all doom and gloom as it obviously as it is, because you can get sort of the fun, excitement environment around it as well. So for me, it was just giving that back, to be honest.
Such an interesting one, because I do feel like certain stories and journeys is all about that pursuit of something you may not have experienced previously. So when it comes to listening to you as stepping into the teaching world out your comfort zone, you're seeing it as something maybe that you had an experience of, but you want to shape it and make it better for the people that are going through that experience. Is that kind of an accurate summary?
Yeah,
what was
similar.
school like?
Obviously for me, obviously the field that I want to go into is obviously physical education. Obviously teaching that in secondary school, which I'm currently doing now. But for me personally, I didn't obviously take that route. I think for me, it wasn't much of an interest. I sort of was lingering in my mind a little bit, but I chose food tech instead.
So did I, actually.
I think I chose that because of the teacher that I had, obviously for food tech, and obviously I enjoyed cooking, I enjoyed baking. It was just something that sort of distracted me. So I didn't take P for GCSE, but it was something that I still wanted to sort of explore a little bit. Obviously, when I finished, obviously, which is why I took obviously the B Tech in college around sports coaching and development. And I think that's sort of when I sort of enjoyed it. Not just the physical side of it. It was sort of understanding how the body works and all that stuff. And for me, it's like, okay, you know what, I want to tap into that sort of field around it and sort of shape my own, and then obviously deliver it to obviously like the younger participants around me, to sort of get them to sort of see, do you know what, this is actually an interesting subject to sort of dive into a little bit.
With such an interesting concept there, because in your journey of exploring and finding out these things that are quite essentially benefiting you directly, it's such an interesting concept that you go, rather than holding on to those good things that you can internalize, you want to pass that forwards into the next group of people that you're interacting with. So I assume, for context, by the way, Theo and I met back at college times because I was his teacher. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, but he's still stuck around with me. And it's such an interesting concept, because when I look back at 17-year-old Theo, and I'm seeing a really big class that have got so much personalities and people fighting out for attention, there I see this friendly giant in the corner just sitting there observing quietly, and I'm thinking, that's the first person that stuck out, not all of the noise and the attention. Were you aware of the dynamics of the groups?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's an interesting one actually, because I think even now I'd say I'm a massive observer, and I think I'm that sort of person that will sort of sit back and sort of soak in a lot of things that you obviously see around me in my environment, and then sort of learn from that. So I think for me, like, I think where I am today, I think it's because I've observed a lot in obviously my environment. So it was a tough crowd, obviously.
You didn't have to teach him.
Yeah.
You had to sit there, right, and pretend you were learning.
It was a really tough crowd. But I sort of didn't let that affect me in a sense, because I sort of knew what I wanted to achieve, obviously, at the end of the 2 years. So it was more of a, I want to say distraction, but of a more of a, like a sort of good way to sort of get away from that and to sort of focus on what I need to do to obviously achieve my ambition, obviously then push on and go to uni.
Cool. So, and uni obviously is the next stage, but let's just draw into how the coaching actually evolved, because again, whether it's my fault or not, I don't know, but
Can be your fault, to be honest.
I think it's a good decision, but we made a good agreement that you'd come down, have a look at coaching in the environments that we were working in. Walk me through in terms of those initial steps of getting down to the club. What was your emotions like? What were your thoughts and your aspirations at that moment in time?
Yeah, so definitely, I was obviously, fresh going into 17, coming out of secondary school, GCSEs. So I wasn't really sure, obviously, what my future plan was in, let's say, 3 or 4 years from that age. So it was more of just picking a course where you could just go and participate in sports.
That's how we sell it.
Yeah, just pick a course, participate in sports, and that's pretty much it. So obviously I chose sports coaching and development. At that time I had no interest in coaching, to be honest. It wasn't something that I was looking at doing. I think I didn't even know of the badges, level 1s, 2s and 3s. It was just I thought it was just out there, to be honest. So and obviously you came and approached me, get that in there. Obviously
you were pestering me. You were on my office door every day going, when am I going to get a chance, Bads?
No, so yeah, and then it was just more of a despaired moment, like just come down. I've doing well. at obviously college, getting the grades that I need to get to obviously push on. So obviously you invited me down to Hendon. Bearing in mind, 5 minutes away from me, I've never even heard of the place before. So when I turned up, I was like, oh wow, it's quite a nice place to be honest. Yeah, so turn up there, and it's more just observing. Obviously, like I said, just observing, just see what the environment's like, see what the people's like. Is this something that I can, or just something I see myself doing in the next 3 or 4 years?
Yeah.
So I came down, obviously observed. I think the first two coaches I met were obviously Shane and Greg.
Yeah.
I think they were a massive help in terms of my step towards coaching. I think because watching them again, seeing how they even just talk, how they carry themselves, for me, something that I take pride in terms of how you carry yourself as a person, how you show yourself as a personality.
Looking at those, and I think it's so important, crucial, the observations from other people in practice, regardless of the experience or qualifications that person is observing. I think every chance is learning opportunity, right? So when you're talking about the way they interacted or the way they presented themselves, what was it that made you go, I can do that, or that's something I'm aspiring to do as well? What were those key moments that you were seeing?
I think it was more just being an inspiration and a role model. I think like nowadays kids, they thrive off like your energy and whatnot. So if you sort of show them like your inner child, you sort of get that joy from it as well, in terms of look, like they're enjoying this, like if they're enjoying it, this is perfect because this is what you want them to do.
Yeah.
And at first it can be like nerve-wracking in terms of like, if this is what you want to do, like it's like what if people's watching you, or like what if like someone said, oh look how childish he is, but if you look at the bigger picture, like, well, do you know what, he's 6, 7 years old and he's laughing his head off, he's enjoying it. You're gonna sort of get that sense of feeling where, do you know what, you're making a difference in this young child's time here at obviously Hendon Youth, especially. So for me, seeing that, it was like, do you know what, I think I can do this. I think because I'm a sort of calm person, that didn't really affect me in terms of like what people would think. So I think for that, watching that especially, being around that, I was able to sort of follow in that footsteps and sort of pursue what they were doing as well at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so critical that what you said earlier about bringing in your inner child, because I think sometimes there's a certain point as we go through, whether it's the teenage years, the adolescent years, we want to shake off that old identity of our childhood and become this new persona of an adult. But then we sometimes lose those qualities that are actually so enriching to build the relationships. And even as adults, like the banter that could be had, whether it's in professional environments or personal environments, they're feel-good moments when they're working well, right? And I'm just always thinking that's the culture and the environments I aspire to work in, so that it allows other people to feel good. Because if other people are feeling good and feeling happy about themselves, byproduct, I'm going to be feeling good about myself as well. So let's talk about formative years, so the early stages, your family upbringing, right? So you're telling me here that sport wasn't necessarily on your radar until college years. What was childhood like for Theo? What was family dynamics looking like?
Probably the young years. Obviously, I've got a twin.
What?
Yeah.
Keep forgetting that.
Yeah. In fact, I've got an older brother and sister.
Yeah.
They're 29 to 30. They're also twins. So I've got
They're not old. They're not old.
Compared to me, yeah. So my mum obviously had 2 sets of twins, so it's a family of 5. I've got an older sister, an older brother and sister. They're twins, and obviously I'm a twin myself.
I didn't know that. So you're two oldest, twins. Okay,
twins as well.
Interesting.
Boy and a girl.
Yeah.
And then obviously me and my brother, 2 boys. I think when we were younger, you could probably say we were identical. And most annoyingly, my mum used to dress us the same as well, which didn't really help the situation a little bit.
The same uniform.
Exactly
well, not
the same.
Uniforms, but like going out for social
Exactly
events.
Exactly the same.
Have you got photos?
I do actually.
We got to get photos for the next one.
Yeah, so it was more of a sense of having someone with me pretty much 24/7, and you sort of get used to it in a sense where, like, yeah, sometimes we would bicker and argue and fight, obviously when we're younger, but now it's more like we've matured a little bit. We sort of accepted, like, like we're twins. Like, you obviously got to stick together. I think that was probably maybe like 12, 13. And I think since then we've just been, like strong bonds. Like, we understand each other really well.
Similar in personalities, laid back.
Yeah,
chills,
I'd say
stride.
so. Yeah, I think, definitely laid back as well. I'm taller, obviously.
Older?
No, he's older by 6 minutes.
Okay.
So he was
But you
born
take the
first.
height over the.
Yeah, I'll take that any day. So it was, so growing up, it was pretty much a sense of, like, you got someone that obviously that will look out for you. I got someone that will look out for him. So in that sense, it was pretty much just a calm upbringing, in that sense, to be honest.
Do you see now any correlation or links between family upbringing and, like I said, the skills, the qualities, the professionalism that you possess right now, and there's any links between, like you just said, about those emotional qualities and skills that you deploy to the environments that you're working in? Was that stemmed maybe from family love, the tightness, the togetherness, and that kind of compassionate?
I'd say so. I think obviously because being around obviously a big family, obviously I've got quite a big family. Obviously that lives obviously like everywhere. You've got family in Jamaica, America, Canada, and obviously like even household wise, it sort of allowed me to sort of obviously always talk and chat. So I think for me, it was always having that sense of being an extrovert in terms of being able to sort of like speak.
Hold conversations.
Yeah, like hold quite a lot of conversations. And I think that sort of allowed me to sort of take that skill and use it within like the professional environment. So if I'm going for an interview, for example, or if I'm delivering a talk, I can sort of give enough detail, or like go over something like a context in terms of like providing enough information. And I think just because I've had that sense of, I've had that sense of sort of knowing what to say and how to say.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because being around family pretty much quite a lot.
Such an interesting one again, because I look back at my transition from like finishing college, university, and going into work world. I was nowhere near the competency and the confidence and the self-assurance and awareness that you possess and others that are around the club that possess as well. And I'm like, I know it's just go boom, boom, boom in terms of more impact, more effectiveness, right? More at ease, because you do have that inner quality of yourself. And that's why I asked the question about the family, because interestingly, family dynamics and upbringings does transfer into professional settings. And we do, I feel firm believer that if there's lots of love and affection and attention given from the family environment, then that's kind of deployed into your professional world as well. Yeah. And one quality of you is that whenever someone meets and greets and knows you over a period of time, they go, what a lovely guy he is, right? Just so humbled and centered and able to just give, which is great quality.
Like, obviously my oldest sister as well, obviously like she's a teacher, obviously she's teaching in a school as well. I've got my cousin on my mum's side, so obviously she's a teacher. And I've got a few aunties on my dad's side as well, so they're teachers as well. So it's sort of like...
You had to be a teacher.
I had to have a choice. So it's just sort of, like following and sort of seeing how I can sort of take that as well and put it into my own context, obviously with coaching, and obviously still going to teaching at the same time. So there was quite a lot of qualities that I sort of picked up.
Yeah, definitely.
From an early age.
So we've discussed a little bit of your journey in terms of how you get started in coaching. You've had experience around teaching as well, and you're saying they're similar qualities or roles. Can you explain a little bit more why they're similar, right? How you transfer from your teaching hat to your coaching hat, and is there any differences between the two?
I think there are quite a lot of similarities and differences. I'll start with the differences first. So obviously in my coaching environment, it's a bit, I would say it's a little bit easier compared to teaching. I think it's because everyone wants to be there. Everyone wants to come. Everyone wants to come to football to learn, to get better, to develop, to push on, and play at the best possible level that they obviously can. And obviously, I'm there to sort of provide them, like the best learning environment possible for them to go on and achieve that. Obviously, with them helping them learn themselves and develop, their sense of strategies, and just sort of guide them rather than spoon feed them. Sort of just guide them, just to sort of get on path. Obviously, with teaching, it's obviously, look, not everyone wants to come to school, not everyone wants to do this. So it's sort of, how can you engage that in terms of a sport and PE environment to sort of get everyone on board. And I think that's where my qualities come into play, because I think because I'm such a calm person, everyone sees me as sort of just a person that wants to obviously give their best, obviously develop people. I think they sort of see it as, he's trying to help me, so I'm going to sort of try my best, obviously in this environment, to sort of just show that I am interested and I do care. I'm not saying you have to be best at the sport, but sort of just give obviously absolute best, and obviously that's what I'm here for, to sort of develop you within a technical area, within a specific field, to sort of get you to be in that environment.
And would that then hark back to the whole family dynamics of, because you're seeing all this self-giving, from your superiors, like your aunties, your uncles, your sisters, all teachers wanting to give back. So as a byproduct, you've seen them do a lot of giving, and not necessarily them, you're sitting in watching their lessons being delivered, but just their interactions, and then you're trying to explain or show that to the disengaged individual that's sitting in the classroom, that's struggling with whatever the activity is. Is that where you're coming from with regards to that inner belief, the non-negotiable, is that I'm always here to go and guide and support?
Yeah, definitely. I think even for me, obviously PE lessons was something that I enjoyed, always the first one to the lesson, because I just loved taking part in obviously PE activities, and that even some sports I weren't really good at, like cricket or say netball, for example. It was more of a, look, you're outside, you're not in lesson, you're moving up and down, you sort of got that freedom. So it was sort of, look, how can I get that sort of understanding into, let's say, someone younger than me, to sort of get them to understand, look, you're in this environment, doesn't matter if you're good or not, it's how can you sort of change your sort of understanding around that, just to sort of get you to sort of push on a little bit. I think that was just mainly the deal for me, obviously going into teaching. It's just making sure that how can you get the best out of someone, even if they're not enjoying their time at school, because obviously everyone comes from different backgrounds, everyone has different things going on, but obviously when you're in an environment, you've got to treat everyone with obviously the same thing. How can you sort of get the best out of this person here?
When it comes to school, it's such a chaotic place, right? Because there's so many needs, there's so many individuals, so much attention being kind of thrashed about the room, and obviously the teachers trying their best to manage those individuals or group collectively. What would be easy wins? Say if there's a brand new teacher starting, or a brand new coach, they're a bit apprehensive, they're not sure in terms of how to get an easy win with the group that they're going to next deliver with, say within the next half hour, right? They're just about to walk into that classroom or into that football session. What would you do? What would you advise, or what would you show?
Funny enough, actually, this is probably me last week, obviously starting a new teaching post. Obviously we're in a secondary school, and I think it's just more just forgetting the sort of teaching side of it just for a second, and just sort of understanding, look, you're going into the environment which you wasn't once yourself. How best can you get the reaction, a positive reaction, obviously from the students, and also sort of understanding, building relationships, and sort of just gaining a bit of trust as well. So it could just be random question, like what team to support, or even what's your favourite sports, and just sort of just building that sort of relationship, because then when you build that, it's sort of they're sort of entitled to sort of I got to listen to it now because we made a good conversation, we understand each other a little bit, so it's I don't want to go to a lesson and mess about, for example. So it's more of just understanding the person, especially in a school environment, it's just understanding the person before obviously teaching the sort of the technical ability, obviously of any sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I think that will sort of make it a lot more easier.
Yeah.
So obviously I get quite a lot of questions. So when I first walked in, obviously to a teaching environment, do you play basketball? I get that.
Or are you Tammy Abraham?
Yeah, or like I get so many questions around that. So I sort of make a joke around it, but like, yeah, we're cousins. And then they go, and then it's just like little things like that. It's just getting them to sort of engage you a little bit. And obviously, like when you do that, it sort of brings that calmness, that intention down a little bit, just to make them feel a bit at ease. Because obviously, it's for them as well. It's overwhelming seeing someone coming in, into an environment. So I think it works both ways. And sort of how can you get that that level of calmness?
Well, truthfully, what we're saying is that, or hearing, is that just your energy, your aura is your X factor, kind of like the way you are naturally. Then someone might be thinking, easy for him to say, yeah, I've got all of these things going on in my head. So I want to see, has there been a really difficult, uncomfortable moment in your coaching or teaching journey, and you went, do you know what, forget this, like all this calmness and Zen stuff, I need to be showing a different style or different technique?
I'd probably say I'd be lying if I say no. I mean, I've had a lot, to be fair.
Yeah.
Especially in the early stages of obviously my coaching career. I'd probably say mainly for me, I think I think when I get put on a spot to coach, I think I enjoy it more than I did 3 years ago, because I can sort of improvise now and sort of obviously what I knew now compared to what I did 3 years ago. Obviously it'd be a lot more easier, but I say 3 years ago, asking me to deliver, let's say a technical practice or something that sort of gets players moving a little bit without no plan or anything, then it's like, okay, crap, like what do I think, like what do I need to do, how, why, when?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more harder when you have then obviously like a lot of parents watching you, a lot of eyes on you. And I think that was something that I couldn't really quite get to grips with. Obviously having all the eyes on me, you being centre attention. But now obviously as I got more competent, as I sort of understood obviously what coaching is about, you got to understand that obviously you're here to develop players, like you're here because of the players. And I think when you get that idea in your head, it's a lot more easier to sort of plan, prepare, even when you have 30, 40 players watching you.
So just so I've got clarity on that, that shift, because I think a lot of us do go through that question of, do we have the capabilities, the competency, the confidence to go out and make it our own version, and everyone like aspire to come to us. But in that transition of the last 3 years, are you saying you just had to tell yourself in your mind, yes, eyes and attention are on me, but it's because of the message of developing the player. So it's not now necessarily about what I'm doing, even though I'm a huge influence to it, but I just got to make sure the bigger thing, the bigger North Star, is that we're developing players or making individual experiences worthwhile. So it became less about you and more about the impact of others or the message of development.
Yeah, and I think it was more just obviously the exposure as well, like having that exposure to coach pretty much nearly every evening, every single week. I think having that allowed me to sort of understand and sort of ease myself a bit in terms of understanding that the players are here for one reason. Obviously, I'm here for one reason. For me to get the best out of the players, I was obviously to develop myself, and the players for obviously to develop themselves and obviously push on. So I think when we can sort of establish and understand that environment, then it sort of takes that pressure off you a little bit in terms of understanding, like, you're just here just to do what you need to do, and just sort of enjoy it at the same time. When you have an impact on that child's footballing journey, to then go and push on when they get older, it makes a massive difference.
What comes first, your development or their development?
I'd probably say my development, because my development will then help their development in that sense. If I'm not understanding the game, or if I'm not understanding what I need to do, then how can I coach it to the players in that sense? So I think once I understand my development, understand the game, understand what I need to do with the players in their position specific, then it allows me to go and coach it, obviously, to the players, and that's how it sort of shapes their understanding.
Yeah.
So I think, that for me, that's obviously really important.
I agree. I think you have to use the word deliberately, selfish initially for you to be selfless afterwards. Because the journey is that if you're not reaping all the experiences, skills, wisdom, you're going to be a cup half empty to pour into someone else, as opposed to half like full, and you've got all of that kind of great impact and effectiveness. So when it comes to football teaching right now, what's the short-term motives? So you're saying you've just finished university. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Results out yet?
July.
So you haven't finished university yet?
That'll be fine.
You sure?
Yeah,
but with that demeanour, of course, it'll be fine. So what's the next motive or the next steps within coaching and teaching for you?
Luckily, I just passed my UFB license.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So in terms of a coaching environment, it's just sort of how can I be a good UFB coach rather than just obviously having that badge next to my name. I think it's really important, obviously, not just for me, but for other coaches as well, to understand how can you become a good UFB coach and what can you do to sort of implement your learning, obviously, over the course of 12 months and continue to gain, obviously, understanding, obviously, gain more CPD hours.
Yeah.
So I think that in terms of the next short term, it's just to sort of understand the hows and whys around obviously different tasks, obviously around coaching. I'd probably say for teaching as well, it's just sort of obviously getting that qualified teaching status. So obviously it starts September.
Yeah.
Obviously to get that qualification, and then obviously once I have that, it's obviously now becoming I think it's called a ETC, early trained. I can't remember what it's called. NQT. It's newly qualified teacher.
Yeah.
So obviously getting that for obviously 2 years, and obviously having the UFB, obviously having the degree as well is pretty much what's next.
Yeah, of
to
course.
Sort of obviously go and push on.
So that's exciting stuff, because then we're looking at another 2-year journey ahead of you, and you're already looking forward to the new skills or the wisdom or philosophy that you have around the two industries. Do you currently know, like you said, you've just passed your B license, do you currently know what a good B license or an experienced B license coach is, or is that something you're exploring?
Yes and no. Obviously still exploring it. So I'm still going to a lot of sessions, I'm still observing, I'm still sort of soaking in obviously like the information obviously given on the course. I think I went into that course quite confident, and obviously the first day let's just say it was
what is football?
Yeah,
never heard of this.
It was quite a lot of information overload, obviously to say the least. So
yeah,
I think I was still soaking in that moment in terms of understanding, okay, like what is B license, because obviously it's a professional qualification that allows you to go and coach full time in a academy environment. So you basically got to be the best of the best, obviously, to achieve that qualification. So it was sort of just understanding what it is I needed to do to sort of get myself over that line, and then once I get myself over the line, is now what can I do to sort of perfect it in that area to sort of be the best or one of the best UFB coaches, obviously, let's say in the next few months to come.
Any particular age group to specialise in, or is it just fluid?
I think for me, for now at this stage, I think I've enjoyed more working at the foundation phase.
Why?
Mainly because when I see players develop at that age, it puts a massive smile on my face in terms of like you had a massive part to play, you know, in this young child's environment. So especially at like 6 and 7, for example, 7, 8, difference. I think compared to, let's say, 15 or 16, they've really had, 7, 8 years of exposure.
Yeah.
but it could be a different environment. So they may have not had a positive experience. I think when their players are fresh coming at 6 and 7 and 8, if you give a positive impact on their footballing journey, that could then push them even 3 or 4 years down the line.
So you're seeing it sequentially, foundations are key for everyone to have a better journey in their pursuit.
Definitely. I think foundation phase for me is the most important, because it's pretty much like you can't walk before you crawl, you've got to crawl first. And I think at that stage it's really important that you obviously get across and you sort of develop players in the right way to sort of get them to understand their qualities, understand what they're good at, understand how they can think of the game. And then obviously when they push on to get obviously older, they can sort of take that qualities and then shape it technically, tactically, and make them obviously become a better player themselves.
Do you get, whether frustration is the right word or not, or sad, disappointed, where you see a child that has played through their foundation phase, which is primary school year group, they're into their high school years, so that's the youth development phase, but they're missing gaps within their journey of football because of the lack of exposure or coaching, or even down to themselves, I guess, because qualities are very vastly identified through abilities, especially at grassroots. I think there is more and more competition come through it, and hopefully the organisations and systems are getting better at fine-tuning where each level of competition should be pitched at. But what's your thoughts towards when you're seeing players missing those pivotal qualities for the demands of the game?
I think definitely in this day and age, you'll definitely get players that always sort of miss out. Some of the qualities that they maybe had or they didn't get to show. Obviously, at that age, I think it will be sort of naive to think that every single player in that category who has potential can fulfill the potential. It's always going to happen where things can happen, whether it's inside or outside of football. Obviously, like things happen, and I think it's about understanding and accepting it. And then I think is how can we sort of prevent that happening again. Obviously, to let's say that the new set of players coming through, and obviously it's just sort of understanding, what can you do to sort of even just limit the possibilities of, let's say, more players not fulfilling their potential, or not getting the best out of them, obviously when they get older. So I think, it is definitely upsetting, obviously, when players have potential, but then at the same time, you got to understand, look, like I said, it happens, and it's just how can you sort of reshape that for obviously for new players coming through.
Okay. Yeah, completely agree. Okay, so lots and lots and lots going in your professional life. Where do you have time for your personal life? What goes on in your spare time, or if there is spare time?
It's funny because I get quite a lot of questions around this, to be honest, in terms of like what do I do my obviously own time, because I'm always working, teaching, coaching. So the only one answer is just sleep.
Is that why you don't respond to my messages?
No, I don't. You're not the only one, don't worry.
Oh, cheers.
Nah, it's more of a sense. Obviously, I'm coaching pretty much every single evening, as you know. Obviously, teaching pretty much 9 to 3 every day, and obviously Saturday, Sundays is literally match days.
Yeah.
For the couple of teams that I take, so the time that I do get to myself, obviously, just Saturday evenings, Sunday evenings, and I'm pretty much phones on D&D, in bed sleeping.
Yeah.
And obviously ready to go again on Monday. So I guess the sort of time I do get, obviously like your half terms, your Easter holidays, your Christmas periods.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'd probably just go out with a few friends. But I think we're sort of in the same boat where obviously I've got quite a few friends where they're teaching and coaching at the same time. So it's just like when it's half terms, that's when we'll sort of meet up, do something, and then sort of just spend a bit of time. But probably during the term, it's mainly just sleep, just recover and sleep.
Sleep is, as I've gotten older, the foundation of productivity and energy and all. So listen, you are on the right track with sleep.
It's underrated, to say the least.
Yeah. Would you like to continue this kind of, I don't know, this demands, this time constraints around just pursuing professional work at this moment, because there's so much to uncover,
Um,
or do you want a little bit more of that balance of personal life back as well?
I do get quite a lot of obviously feedback, obviously from yourself and lots of John and obviously other people around me.
Wow, what do we say? Don't listen to me anyway.
Mainly based around like, you know, you got to find time for yourself and whatnot, and sort of just take a bit of downtime. Obviously, which is true. I do obviously at some point need to sort of obviously find that time. But I think now I'm sort of on a ship where I'm currently going up in terms of like I'm sort of pushing, and I think probably now's not the right time to sort of take a break. If that makes sense. I think I'm obviously enjoying my time. Obviously, I'm enjoying my teaching, I'm enjoying my coaching. So why not continue it? See what will get me next, let's say 3 or 4 years, and then I can sort of maybe take a break or go traveling or something. But I think for now it's mainly just right now I'm focused. I'm in a good position right now, so I just sort of want to just continue that journey.
I think it's key when you're super dialed in and self-aware of what's working and where you're going. Just got to continue in that trajectory to allow you to know what's there to be achieved. And I guess, like you said, that transition, and like I said, that's why I feel you're light years ahead of so many other people your age, because of the exposure you presented to yourself from an early age of getting your hands into it, the unknown, the uncomfortable, and being able to just really explore, level up in your skills, networks, relationships, and be able to just say yes to a lot of things, which obviously we say don't do do a lot of, right? But at the same time, once you have that stability of your teaching career, then you can obviously reflect and review to see how does that look with your coaching on top of it as well. But looking at someone starting from brand new, what advice, tips, or don'ts you would tell them?
I think the biggest one, obviously, that I got told, and obviously I would tell, obviously, you know, people coming up in the same environment as me, is always sort of knock on people's doors and don't expect things to come your way. And I think I've been very good at that over the last 2 years.
You haven't been knocking on my door.
Yeah, just,
you're busy elsewhere. You're on another street somewhere else.
Yeah, pretty much. Just sort of just knocking on people's doors, just understanding. You know, like opportunities will come your way, but you have to sort of don't expect it at the same time. You sort of got to work for it at the same time.
How did you get that? How did you get that wisdom? Because a lot of people do feel like it's going to come if I manifest it, if I just have this good aura and energy about me. But what allowed you to think, do you know what? Sod all that, I need to go out there and make a name for myself.
I think it comes from, again, like just being a confident person. I think allow myself to sort of deal with some rejections and not get put down by it. And you know, people always tell me, look, if you don't ask, you don't get.
What rejection? Give me an example. What happens?
Happened?
Who was she? It's not that one time. I'm joking. Have you? So in coaching, has there been a few times where you've tried to put yourself out there and you didn't get the email responded to?
Yeah, quite a few times, to be honest. And for me, obviously, one role in particular, it was more of a eye-opener in terms of what I needed to do to obviously get to that stage, and obviously I did in the end, but then it's still, what can I do more to get a bit further in terms of what I want to obviously achieve. Obviously the next,
was that their misjudgment or just wrong timing and placement for you?
do you know what, I think it was wrong timing, and do you know, a bit of both, to be honest. A bit of both. I think morely for me, just wrong timing, because it was more of a spare the moment where I saw this opportunity, went for it, knowing that I will be ready for it in the next, let's say, couple of months, but I went for it now. And it was more ask myself if I'm ready for it. And I think that's where I've sort of gotten better at in terms of understanding my needs and wants.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Needs and wants, a lot of us would go easily identify the want. I want, all right, a drink. I want to go on a holiday. I want this amount of money in the bank account. What's the need? Is that easily identified, or is that having to go through experiences and processes?
Yeah, I think it's definitely
setbacks?
going through obviously experiences, setbacks. But even at that time, it was just needing to complete my degree, for example, or needing to get more experience in an environment, for example, rather than wanting to go into an environment just for like just for the sake of it in that sort of sense. But I think when I obviously sort of understood that quickly, it sort of allowed me to sort of focus on one area first, and then sort of go back to it, and then sort of open that idea again and see if I can sort of change it a little bit.
I feel like it's a never closed door. It's just timing is always apparent once we reflect on things, right? So I think you said it brilliantly there. Knowing that there's certain aspects of all of our lives that are going to be of a higher priority, maybe because those opportunities close a lot sooner, and then you don't want to live in regret, or I don't want to live in regret. So I prioritize in the short term the want for the need, and then if that's the case that I still didn't get what I wanted through that need, then I've got to self-reflect even further, deeper to go, or was it? Right, and then I suppose that's the analysis that I go through of overthinking. Okay, so I hear you're at a cup final. How the hell did that happen? Talk us through it. What's going on? When is it? And firstly, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've got a cup final coming up Sunday, 18th of May, so this week. So it's the Middlesex Cup final, so it's the Jim Taylor Cup. Obviously that takes place every single year, and obviously there was, I think, over 60 teams in at the start.
Wow.
From round one, and yeah, we pretty much got through down to the last two.
Wow.
But it's it's the hard work of the players,
yeah.
The dedication, the commitment, obviously even from the parents getting them to training. Sometimes we even train 3 times a week plus a game, and it's just like to have all 18 players turn up. It's just like it goes to show why we're in that situation, because of the commitment that we have. So we've got a cup final coming up.
How do boys look like preparing for it? Is it just normal stuff, or is there a little bit more additional excitement, apprehension around, obviously, if you're going from 60 to the last two?
Yeah.
Like,
I think obviously that like the environment's definitely it's definitely positive at the moment. Like a lot of players are looking forward to they come to training, they're speaking about it nearly every single minute. But in terms of my coaching philosophy, I haven't really tried to change it too much, mainly because I don't want to sort of overwhelm them a little bit, So it's more to stick to the plan. You have a plan, do what you've been doing that's got you to the final.
Yeah.
Don't change it too much, because it's just like you don't want to do it too much and then sort of look back at it and be like, should I have stuck to the plan? So it's more just sticking to the plan, and obviously hopefully on Sunday you can hopefully bring it home.
Bring it home.
Bring it home.
Yeah, it's coming home.
Yeah.
Hopefully to Hendon.
But yeah, like it's even the coaches around me, like obviously that I've had to help, has been brilliant in terms of like support and whatnot. So should hopefully be a good day. I think overall, in terms of the outcome, I think it'll be a good day.
Well, this is it. I was going to say, what are you going to? Obviously, this is leading into it, but then on reflection, probably be satisfied with just the achievement of being there. Result will be the result, or you're like, no, we have to win.
Nah, I think we've played quite probably 2 tough teams leading up to it. I think the one we played in the semi-final was obviously our toughest game, if not one of the toughest games of the season. And obviously to win it in the way that we did, I think it was more of a statement that that we can go on and push it, and obviously hopefully win it. But I wouldn't say it was by luck. I think we deserved to win it. Obviously the semi-final. So I think going into the final, it's given us a lot of confidence. It's given us a lot of confidence, and hopefully, we'll get the boys. Yeah, we'll get the boys firing up for that.
Well, I can just only say from an outsider looking in, it's been such a remarkable journey and story, not just with your team, but like you said, you as the person. Anyone that comes across and speaks to you, whether it's just in a brief conversation or they've known you for a number of years, the qualities that they always talk about is the humility, like the kind of inner calmness that you have, which still baffles me at your age, like how you are like that, but fair play.
To be fair, sometimes a lot of people say that I'm probably like one of the most calmest person that they met, but even myself, I don't even know, like even to some situations where it's just like, you're like, how on earth do you keep calm in that situation?
Yeah.
But again, I just think it's just upbringing, is like, just, seeing what's around me. Just understand, like, not everything revolves around there being erratic. Like, you can still sort of solve things just by just having that calm. That sort of calm head.
And the world moves on, regardless of the big problem, the small problems.
Yeah.
Like,
but even from yourself, like, I think even you being calm, I sort of picked that quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding and just watching, observing, and just sort of soaking it in as well.
This is it. We are the biggest thieves. Theo, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a really good chat, in depth. Learned loads, even though I've known you for a number of years. Didn't know that you were taller than your twin brother. But I'm sure we'd love to have you back on for another episode to tell us about that cup final. We wish you all the best, and yes, we'll hopefully catch up very soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries.
Thank you.
Take care.